It's when, I will never forget when we were in Santa Ana doing ministry with a gang called 18th Street Gang. My sister used to tell me, and my son was 4th grade, and it was this whole different world. And my sister used to tell me, this is bad. Scotty's going to grow up to be this gangster or this drug dealer, or you can't, how can you expose him to this? And I remember I would think to myself, if I told Scotty in 4th grade, take out the trash, and he didn't do it immediately, I would think, oh no, he's going to be a drug dealer. Because I expected, or I listened to those words, created this in my mind, and I was expecting him to behave as if he was grown, okay? To do immediately what I asked him to do, okay? And so there is a learning curve for kids. 2-year-olds, you can't expect 2-year-olds or 5-year-olds or 7-year-olds or 12-year-olds. We need to learn what is emotionally appropriate for their age. It's so funny because sometimes the things we expect of them, we don't even do ourselves. And so knowing what is emotionally appropriate and developmentally appropriate for their age helps a lot, okay? So, they can't be little perfect, have every fork right, as their, whatever, for their age. You have to look at what their age is. Secondly, you get a whole lot more kids learn a whole lot more when it's fun for them. You catch a lot more flies with honey than vinegar. So making it an enjoyable thing for them to learn. Helping them, learn something because it is a fun thing, is a way that they will keep it all their life. I want to be authority, not authoritarian. And we'll talk about this more later if you want to. Remind me next week, we can talk about it. But there's really where it's about allowing your kids to have choice, and the consequences of their choice are what determines their behavior. For instance, my 10-year-old is sitting there with his feet on the table during dinner. And that's just not okay, right? Okay, so what I do is, instead of, I say, I really don't like feet on the table at dinner. Could you please take your feet off the table? And he doesn't. Then the consequences are, he doesn't eat with me because I don't like that. Okay? And he will learn eventually not to do that. Or that, there's really very few things that are so dangerous and so harsh that we have to get very authoritarian with them. The more we give them their own ability to deal with their issues or deal with what they're doing because of their own choice and the consequences they find out about that choice, the more they're going to be able to live outside of your domain in healthy ways. For instance, if I am this big, authoritarian, harsh person for my kid, so that when they do something wrong, I come down on them, like a battle axe. What happens is they learn to do it when I'm not around. They don't learn that I don't want to do this because of XYZ happens. They just learn to, when they're out of your sight, they can get away with it. Does that make sense? We don't want them learning that. That's a very low kind of moral way to live. By the way, that's what most Americans, that's the level they live at. If nobody's around to watch, then I can get away with it. Okay? What we want them to learn is their own moral identity and their own moral choice, because it's what is best and healthy and what I choose. That takes a lot more time and a lot more practice, but creates a child who has a high moral character. Does that make sense?
So back to your 10-year-old with the feet on the table example,
Yeah.
What's a correct or like a better way to, like, do you address it with your example? Like, oh, I don't like that.
Yeah. I don't like that. And so, but, you know, you also do it according to their natural bent, okay? Which is a whole other issue. But so let's say you know what, I really prefer to eat without feet on the table. I don't like feet on the table when I'm eating. Most people don't. So, you know, you need to take your feet off the table. If they don't, then they need to eat alone, or it may be that they need to skip dinner till tomorrow, till breakfast time, because bummer, we don't get to, you know, apes eat with their feet on the table, we don't. Okay? And so you let the consequences of their choice, instead of forcing them to get their feet off the table and forcing them, I mean, what, are we gonna duct tape them to the chair? What, you know, forcing them to do what I want, the consequences are what dictate their decision to do it. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. So you
Carol,
can,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
like you can remove yourself and not sit with us if you're gonna have your feet on the table, and then
Right.
like that would be okay.
Yeah.
To say, or,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know,
I hear you saying like giving choice, like so you can choose to eat here with your feet on the ground, or you can choose to eat outside on the patio with your feet wherever you'd like.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Right, you can do it that way. It depends on the kid. Some kids, if they're real rebellious, and maybe they just need to not, you know, that's the end of dinner tonight. Bummer.
Yeah.
You know. When we make the punishment greater than the problem, it thumbtacks their behavior to do it again and again and again. It's like if I tell you don't think about butterflies, who's not thinking about a butterfly? Everybody is, because I have just thumbtacked butterfly. So when I come in and I am so harsh, I am more harsh than the behavior was, it just helps, it just causes them to do it again and again and again and again and again. Okay? The other thing is too, you also want to thumbtack good behaviors. So as soon as they've got their feet off the table, you are so, you know, hey, good job. They come and sit down, before they can get their feet up on the table, I see your feet on the floor, that's so good. So you're thumbtacking a good behavior. You want to try and extinguish negative behaviors. But we usually do it the opposite. We can talk about that more at a different time.
Yeah, I was gonna say that we should.
Hey!
We shall. I don't know. Have,
Would like?
One of these. I would like if one of these was on boundaries, because a lot of something I thought about like an hour ago when you said something about, I thought being a flexible person isn't a boundaryless person, and I think we need to discuss that because a lot of what you're talking about right now, in answer to Karen's question, another really helpful resource is Boundaries in Parenting,
Yes.
which is one of the reasons we give that as like one of our number one recommendations for parents. I feel like it helps. It's helped me so much to understand what Carol's talking about providing consequences for your kids that are a little bit more of like natural life consequences that they would experience in real life, so that they can, make their own choice, and then they choose their own consequence or not. And it's actually causes less stress for you, and you become less controlling. But anyway, I just was thinking about that. Like we could have one maybe on discussing what boundaries looks like, and also practically. One thing else I will say is that we've had to be pretty intentional about seasonally meeting about consistent patterns that we see in our kids, and then we have to, with God and in prayer, define what our consequences are going to be for those specific things that we're wanting to grow in them, and we have to, and we have to tell them what they are and keep them the same and consistent.
Yes.
But it can't just be like on the fly.
Right.
It takes some like sitting down with your journal going, these are the 3 or 4 things that consistently drive me crazy about my kid, or that I see them pushing boundaries on consistently. Okay, God, like what is a natural consequence? Mm-hmm. What's reasonable for their age? Which also I was going to say, you can Pinterest that and find like a whole thing on like age appropriate, what to expect with a 2-year-old, what to expect with a 4-year-old, or different things like that. So I think it does take a little bit of work to understand some of this and a little bit of intentionality, but it goes a long way, I feel like. And anyway, those are just some thoughts I had.
That's great, Crystal. And I would just say for everybody, give yourself a great big hug and some loving kindness that you sat and you want to do this. and that you want to be this person for your children, and that you want to do that. I mean, that you guys deserve big hugs, big loving kindness and grace for yourselves, that you've come and done this today, and that you want that. That's awesome. So is this a good time? Would you guys like to do this again next week? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I would.
Okay, so between now and then, if you think of something, you know, that you want to talk about, or some area that's, you know, or whatever, you can email me or Crystal, and just, you know, so you don't have to keep it, hey there, Pumpkin! So you don't have to
Hi,
keep
Amy.
it, you know, in your head for all week. You can just, you know, shoot an email and pass it around. One of the very best ways I have learned to teach Scotty, my son, anything, it was to have him teach it to somebody else. Even when it was our dog or Elmo or whoever. It is a great way to teach. So pass it around, teach it to somebody else, share it. Share the good news. Okay?
Good.
All right, you guys.
Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome.
much.
You're so welcome.
Thank
Have a
you
good
so
week, everybody.
much.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
All right.
Carol, do you want to stay on this for just a second?
Sure.
With me?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
That'd
that's
be
good.
great.
All right.
Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for the helpful categories.
You're welcome.
Oh.
I'm going to turn this off right quick.
Hi, Jen. Bye, Jen.